today we're getting into something super, super current. I'm literally sitting here recording this a matter of hours after the whole internet outage thing has happened, but it was just the perfect topic to talk about in this week's episode. But before we do, let's begin with the sip of the week. So these are my highlights and sometimes lowlights of my previous week here in South Italy. So first of all, huge highlight, your lovely comments about this new format. Thank you so much. It really means the world to me. Those of you who have commented, those of you who have reposted about my channel on Instagram, it means so, so much. So yeah, huge, huge hi for me. Also, you may have noticed my podcast microphone arrived. I'm super happy. I think probably the quality is going to be somewhat better than what I was using before. So that's a huge plus. I would also say as well that in the past week here in South Italy, the weather's been okay. We've had quite a bit of rain in this period, it's true, but we've also had days where it has felt like spring. And this is what I mean about living here. In the south of Italy, especially, autumns often resemble spring in terms of temperatures. When the sun is out, it's super lovely. The evenings can be a bit chillier. But as my boyfriend says in this time, you have to dress like an onion. You've got to have lots of layers on at this time of year, especially because sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's chilly. And this is when I think a lot of people get sick for this reason. So yes, something very important to remember, especially if you're coming to Italy at this time of year as well. What about lows for the past week? Oh, my hair. So I had my hair done last week and I love the color, no problems. But my hairdresser cut it a little bit shorter than I really wanted. Now, I think it's entirely my fault because I didn't actually express how much I wanted cut off my hair, because I've been going to this hairdressing salon now for the past few months. And so I naively assumed that they would know how much to cut off my hair because it's the same hairdresser every time. But no, it ended up being a lot shorter. But I like it. I think I can make it work. It's not the end of the world, but I was a bit disappointed when I first had it done. So I feel like it's something that's going to grow on me for sure. So, big communication point then. If you come to Italy and you go to the hairdressers, please make sure that you are super, super clear in your directions, because I've had quite a few hair disasters here. And I think I've finally arrived at the point where I found a good hairdressers, but it doesn't mean things still can't go wrong like what I'm talking about today. So you've just got to be careful. So let's get into the full pour of today's episode, which is this huge AWS, Amazon Web Service outage that has affected pretty much all of the internet this morning at the time of recording. And it really got me thinking about how Italy has it so right when it comes to communication, because I couldn't work this morning properly because we use Zoom as a platform for lessons. So Zoom, of course, wasn't working. And I know many other people couldn't work either. And a lot of the kind of communication apps, shall we say, and apps that businesses really depend on were not working because of this outage. And it got me thinking about how, because people couldn't communicate or do the things that they normally do, we reverted back to life before the internet, trying to message people and trying to make contact with people using platforms that were operational at that time. But it just got me thinking about communication, because we are so heavily dependent on the internet for the majority of our lives, not just for work, but also for everyday communication, organizing our lives and everything like this, that when something like that happens, which at the moment it's still to be determined exactly what happened. I mean, at one point they were saying that it could have been a possible cyber attack, but who knows? It really makes you question how much of your life you should keep online and how much of it you should try to maintain offline as well. And this is where I think Italy has it right, because I've spoken about this before, usually on my YouTube channel, but predominantly connections here in Italy are in person. If you have a business, you form those connections with other businesses in person. It's not to say that companies here don't use technology and that they don't need to have online meetings or speak to people using the internet. But when you are making connections with people, they are not solely dependent on the internet in a way a lot of other businesses around the world are. I used to consider this to be quite an old-fashioned method, and I used to really question the efficiency of always having to have in-presence meetings with people and always having to go in person when you wanted to form new connections. But actually, the more I think about it, I feel like people have got it right here. But it really makes you understand something, that in presence connections will never go anywhere. And I've spoken about this before, that people are so worried about artificial intelligence, so worried about technology replacing connection. But actually, there is a huge trend at the moment back to native connection, back to in presence, back to a human touch, that I really don't think we should be as concerned about technology and artificial intelligence as people have been. I'll give you an example, which I spoke about on my main channel, but which really sums up what I'm talking about today. I bought some things from Zara last month for a wedding that we were going to, and I ordered them online, but I ordered them to be delivered to the local Zara store because I was there thinking, it's a lot easier. I can be sure it's going to arrive, etc. Anyway, I had all the notifications come through to tell me that it had been delivered. Yet when we went to the Zara store, they couldn't find my package. And I was really frustrated, but the store could do absolutely nothing because they didn't deal with the online orders. They only dealt with orders that had been placed in their store. So I was in this situation where I had to wait until the Monday, because it was the Saturday when we went to the shop, for somebody to look into the situation. And I honestly felt like I was just communicating with an AI bot the whole time. I was being asked the same kinds of questions. The format of what was being sent to me was exactly the same, even though different operators' names were being placed in the text. It just felt super, super artificial without any kind of empathy. And it left me with a bitter taste in my mouth, absolutely. And even though in the end, after some time of them investigating what had happened, and then kind of at one point telling me, okay, there is a problem with your order, we can place another order, to them being told like a couple of days later, what do I want to do? So, there was like a real mess behind this whole situation. But it was interesting because even though it got resolved in the end and I just got a refund because what I wanted was never going to arrive in time, it made me realize how the human touch is so important, especially when things are going wrong, especially when you need some assistance with something. It's super frustrating to chat to an AI bot because at the moment, especially, the technology isn't there to really display that empathy and to make you feel like you've been seen and heard. And so I feel like having an offline life, not being so dependent on technology, is super important, and nurturing those connections as well. I've been reading a lot of marketing news recently, and a lot of people are saying that it's kind of ironic that even tech companies now are leaning into this human connection, this human touch, because they realize it's what people crave. There is this big trend at the moment to go offline, to not use social media as much, to really live, I want to say, a normal life, because, how did we even manage back in the day without phones? I remember using the payphone when I was a teenager to call home to my parents. And when I didn't have any money, doing the whole like rim back thing where you could rim back in an emergency and then like the charges would be reversed, so my parents would pay. This kind of thing just feels so archaic now. Everybody uses technology, mobile phones, WhatsApp, whatever it may be. But at one point in the past, that didn't exist. And it wasn't so long ago, really, when you think about it. And so I wonder sometimes, how much technology is really improving our connections and our relationships. So, we see how a lot of people now have problems with, socialization and problems with making connections because they are so insular and in a way isolated because of the use of technology. It's just an interesting thing. And I feel like this whole outage this morning has really highlighted our dependency as a society, as the world, even on technology, and how I think it can actually be quite dangerous. And walking around today and seeing like all the little shops open here in Italy, it made me realize that, there is a sense of tradition that still works even to this day. And people will always regress back to that because it is the core essence of us as humans. We are not meant to communicate through screens all the time. We are not meant to have just solely digital connections with people. We are meant to meet people, touch people, have face-to-face conversations with people, and maintain that offline aspect of our life and not allow it to be all consumed by the internet and by convenience, because essentially the internet does represent this aspect. So I just think it has really made me appreciate life here in Italy a little bit more, especially here in the south of Italy, because I do see the value in making connections to people in presence. I do see the value of meeting somebody and having a conversation face to face instead of having it through an online forum like Zoom or Teams, for example. I see the value in that. And I feel like I see it more because I live here. If I were in the UK, I probably would appreciate in presence contact, but I'd also lean more into the technology and the convenience side of things because that is just the culture in the UK, like to be online and to kind of live in this way. So it's this, the AWS outage, something that we'll be talking about for a few weeks. I'm absolutely certain it's going to raise a lot of questions, but also it just shows how fragile we are as a society to be solely dependent on the internet in so many different ways. And somebody made a really valid point because even banks were affected by this outage, especially in the UK. And somebody was like, thank goodness I had the money on me to go and buy my food shopping. Like, we are moving towards a cashless society, particularly in the UK as well. There's a real push now for paying by card in some shops. And, you'll find at events and things like this, the food trucks and everything else that's part of that event are usually card only. And I think I read somewhere there's actually a pub in London, I could be wrong, but I think I'm not, that is now only cards, no cash. So we're moving towards this, but then when something like this happens and there's this huge outage and people can't access their money, what happens in those situations? And it's this, like, you cannot beat tradition sometimes. You can evolve, you can make progress, you can change things. But fundamentally, there are some aspects of life that exist for a reason, right? And I do think this is why there's this regression in life. Like, trends, they come full circle. What was trendy 30 years ago ends up becoming trendy in this current time. You see this kind of full circle moment because some things are the core of life and some things you cannot replace, even if you do progress and evolve with the times. So I think this is what I really wanted to highlight today. And our chin chin for today is going to be, how can you nurture your offline life a little bit more? We are all super connected to the internet. I'm as guilty of this as possible, but today has really, really highlighted for me that I want to do more offline. How can you nurture your offline life more? Can you meet up with people more in presence rather than just messaging them through WhatsApp? Can you have more activities that don't require you to use the internet and actually get you out of the house in nature, or just going around and being outdoors, not in front of a screen? Like, what can you do that takes your life offline? How can we reduce our dependency online and actually live the way that we are meant to as humans? We are not meant to be robotic behind screens. We are meant to live and feel and come into contact with everything around us. And so my chin chin for this week is this: how can you make your life a little less online and a bit more present in the moment, in the very way that Italy teaches me to be every single day? I will see you in the next episode.